Hello and welcome to There's No Business Like, a podcast where friends and industry colleagues explore topics and interview leaders in our industry of professional theatrical touring.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to There's No Business Like. Got a fun little episode here for you. Today it's just Josh and I hanging out and recording an episode about our time in New York at the Under the Radar Festival. We'll dive into what the Under the Radar Festival is and some of the things we did there, but Josh, to sort of kick this off, I want to ask you, as part of the Under the Radar Festival, what's one thing that you can't stop thinking about?
There are two things, and one was part of the symposium that we attended. They weren't pitching their show, but they were telling about their show and the show that's in that they have in development. And there was a piece that's a VR goggles piece, and it's formatted to football fields. And they're formatted to football fields because that's a universally the same size thing, and so they can map it out repeatedly to that same thing. But in talking about it, it's an immersive piece through VR goggles that is like the exploration, like following this little girl exploring this land. And while they were setting it up and running tests on it and working on it, one of the football players from the football team at the university where they were working on it at came up, and they put him into it, and he came out of the VR experience just weeping. And he said that that was the first time that he had experienced anything other than violence in that space, and that the duality of something so beautiful, serene, and innocent in a space where he's only known violence struck him to his core.
Cool.
And so I have not been able to stop thinking about creating art in places that are known for violence or trauma.
Yeah, sort of
and
like
what that means.
Yeah, like flipping the script on something. Yeah. What was your second one?
My second one was there was a show that we saw called Reconstructing. I say it wrong every time. They had a metaphor that talked about how in cathedrals there is like a room noise, and that room noise is the remnant of sometimes centuries of singing, that with the physics of a sound wave, those sound waves don't actually completely die. And how those lasting reverberations, creating a room noise in a background, translates to slavery and race relations in the United States.
Yes. So the thing that I remember that really has stuck with me is also from Reconstructing. And for me, it was the way that they talk about polyrhythms being as an example of like people who are dealing with, centuries of racism, but then those people who are also trying to be allies, and being in that same space, and how you have to like focus on yourself. And also listen to the other person, but you can't totally listen to the other person, or else you will sort of become them and like consume that, or like take over what they're trying to do. And they use this idea of polyrhythms in music, because when you're doing a polyrhythm, like you have to listen just enough to your partner to be able to stay on rhythm, but you can't listen too much, or else you will start playing on those same notes. And so when they were talking about that in terms of like allyship and, just like for racial tension and everything, it was, to me, was the most concise and like great way to sort of synthesize that in that story. And so I've been thinking a lot about that. In fact, Jordan in my office, who saw it with us, we have talked about that since then, because it resonated with both of us from that piece.
There's so many layers to the show, with its presentation as well as the content and the metaphors that were presented all throughout. There was one other thing from that show that also really stuck with me, was when the two directors were talking to each other.
Yes. To
not spoil too much, it's kind of a show within the show. And so you're getting to see parts of how it was created while a work is also happening on the stage. But the two directors are talking to each other, and one asks the other, "What do you do to protect yourself from me?" Or "How do you protect yourself from me?" This plays into the polyrhythm discussion, and just the thought of protecting yourself while you are collaborating with someone else so that you don't lose yourself is something else that really stuck with me from that show.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about two different parts of Under the Radar Festival with both the symposium and with a show that we saw. Would you want to kind of dive in a little bit with what is Under the Radar Festival?
Yeah. So Under the Radar Festival is 21 years old as of this year. But it is a festival that was started in New York City to be able to highlight new works. And I think sort of some more, really for lack of a better term, like edgy works, some more performative art works that has grown and changed over time. But within that, so there are shows that happen all across the city in multiple venues at various times. I think as a nice, simple way to put it, I think to concise is like a mini fringe festival. So you're able to see all these different pieces and sort of, just experience different types of art. But also with that, you can be invited to be part of the symposium, which has, I think we were there, we were 2 of 250 people, I think, that were able to attend. And with that symposium, they brought in some artists to be able to talk about the works they're doing, and then they had a conversation about those works, and the audience in there also got to talk about or ask them about them. And then they did some round tables as well. So there's the education sort of professional development day associated with that, but then 3 weeks of seeing shows and spending time with colleagues as well.
Part of what for the symposium was so interesting to me was that Under the Radar is all about new work and emerging work, sometimes experimental work, some things that are still like in workshop. And that even with the PD itself, in those rooms, we were still hearing about new work that's being developed. And so every aspect was fully focused towards new work, how it's being produced, what ways it's being produced, and what new edgy things are being experimented with in the field of theater and all around the world. Because the shows in Under the Radar are fully international as well as local too.
And I think, for you and I, one of the critiques or frustrations was that when they did those artists in around the same rooms, they had, I think we got 3 sessions, but there were 4 groups of artists. And so there was one when Josh talked about the VR thing earlier, and there was one that I was just really like taken aback by. I was trying to explain it to Josh, and he was like, he didn't get that one, and I didn't get the VR one. And so, there's something almost comical about the things that impacted us the most the other person didn't get to experience.
Yeah. But the great part about it was that we were able to share and talk about those with each other. Now that I think about it, it's kind of ingenious in that, especially moving into the roundtables, it allows more people to discuss more things because everybody didn't get to see everything.
It sort of forces the conversation.
They're forcing the conversation so that you then understand what happened in the sessions that you weren't a part of.
Yeah. And also part of the symposium, it was the first time that I heard Nirvana played by a all-female mariachi band, which was really cool. But yeah, so as part of that, I mean, we got to have sort of the education portion of that, which was also nice because it brought together colleagues in the field and some folks that, we've known for years, and then people that, we just met and got to be introduced to as well. I want to talk about some of the works that we saw. I will say that I don't think we have time to go into every piece because I think we saw, as part of Under the Radar, I think we saw 9 shows.
And I was there a little bit longer, and I saw 2 or 3 more pieces.
Yes. So
I was there a few days longer than Kevin, and so I experienced a couple more pieces after that.
We saw 9 shows, and I would say some very different shows. And I think what's, sort of interesting about some of these is it's a very wide variety. And so Josh and I both talked about reconstructing, which we both really enjoyed, and I think is one that we will sort of take forward with us for a long time. Josh, is there a piece that you saw that really challenged you? And this could be, maybe something that challenged you just in, from like what your notion of theater is, or maybe challenged an idea that you had, or, maybe something that you didn't get.
There were parts of a couple of the shows that I didn't get.
Yeah.
One of the shows that we watched together was Mommy. Mm-hmm. And there are portions of that show that I did not get. And there are portions that we talked about for hours afterwards as well.
Yes. Mommy's a great example of a piece that I think both of us understood like most aspects, like what the through line was without knowing anything of the show going into it. So we were able to piece that together, but there are parts and components of that to this day, I mean, I think we joke a little bit about, but it's mostly like, we don't know what it represented.
Yeah.
So that,
and it was a very distinct choice that was made.
Correct. So there's purpose behind it. I just don't know what it is.
Same.
The other one is I do want to talk about a little bit is Friday Night Ratcatchers. And because for me, like it is sort of an absurdist piece of theater. There are moments in it that I think are really funny. But like absurdist humor, I think is not always for me. Mm-hmm. And so that piece challenged me. Like there were things that I liked about it. And there were things that I'll just say like it wasn't for me. So that was challenging for me in the sense that I don't know that I'm exposed enough to that type of theater to be able to honestly talk about it eloquently, but also really critique it as well.
The part that I struggled with that piece was the actual through line with it and following the actual through line with it, because it jumps a little bit and all of the segments didn't connect immediately for me. And I have to assume that there's something that I was missing that was that connecting tissue that I missed within it.
Same. Here's sort of an interesting question. And I, thinking that of the industry that we're in, part of our job is booking shows and bringing pieces of theater to our communities. And so I struggled a little bit sometimes of talking about like the commercial viability of some pieces of theater. I love that they exist. I love that they're doing them. But I also think that there are certain pieces that we saw that can only work in cities like New York or in a festival setting.
And I also think that's the beauty of
Correct.
Under the Radar or Fringe or any festival like that it allows for that space for these things that a commercial viability lens isn't what we should be watching for.
Yes.
And if we are, we're failing as an audience, which we as arts admins and people who book shows and book theater is very easy for us to do, is
it's
to
so
have
hard to
that
turn
failure
off.
Because we're looking at the business end of it,
Yes.
as opposed to just sitting and experiencing it for the art itself and for what it is and what is being presented. And I also have to wonder if that's where I failed in both of the pieces that we're talking about, is that I couldn't get that hat off of my head to be able to take every part of it in.
Yeah. I struggle with that seeing any show. I mean, it doesn't matter, even to the level like Broadway, community theater, like I have trouble turning that part of my brain off of like, how do you fix this? How do you do this better? How do you sell this in the future? Like that sort of thing. And, sometimes it's, realizing that it doesn't need to. Like maybe that's not the point.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's about just exposing an audience to something new. And sometimes like that spark is what leads to the next thing.
And like with one of the pieces that we saw, which was in honor of Jean-Michel Basquiat, that one very well could have been for the performer himself to deal with
Absolutely
the loss of his friend and his confidant.
Absolutely.
Once again, it's so hard to get that out of your head when it's what we are literally in it 40, 60 hours a week a lot of the time. It's hard to turn that off and to disengage and to engage with art for art's sake.
So Josh, I want to talk a little bit about the festival as a whole. Like, what do you think the overarching purpose of this is? And do you think more people should engage with it?
I do think more people should engage with it. The reason something like this is so important is that things like Under the Radar and Fringe Festival is where the new ideas really abound and come out of. And that's where people are allowed experimentation without that commercial pressure and getting it in front of real audiences for the first time. Because, a lot of these pieces were worked on and workshopped at universities and places around the country, but there's a big difference between an educational university audience and a standard audience out in New York City. And this is that next step of getting that work forward, it getting exposure, and also seeing what actually works.
Yeah. And I think the nice thing about Under the Radar is that as a festival, it's one of the festivals that does have a curatorial approach. So like not everything just makes it in. Like there is, there's some selection process, which some festivals around the world are like that, where it's not everything. So there is, that aspect of that. So you're seeing that. What I like about it and why I think it's so important is, much like other festivals, it's exposing me to new pieces of theater and like different types of theater. I think there's a lot of things that if I was just seeing the shows that I could bring in, there's a lot of things that I wouldn't see. And I think that there's also like the aspect of seeing something new that will spark that idea of like, okay, I think my audience should see something like this. So what do I need to get them to that point? Because sometimes like you can't just bring in the weird thing or like,
and
the
this
thing
is where
that's
you fail as an audience member, is because you're trying to grasp at things as you're watching.
Yeah, I will always. But like, I think about those things. Like, I think that that's important for me to see new things. But also sometimes it's just fun.
It's a lot of fun. And as we have been discussing, you see things that don't necessarily speak to you, that you don't understand or that don't catch you.
Yeah.
That exploration is important.
Yeah.
But to me, like at the Marion Cultural and Civic Center, 95% of what I'm seeing will never make it to the stage there. However, it's important in my mind for me as a theater administrator, as somebody who programs a space, to know what is developing at that experimental emerging level as things move forward, and the things that become slightly more commercial and then move into our space, to be aware of those things ahead of time.
Yeah, I think whether we like to use this term or not, we are experts in our field. And I
like using that term all the time.
Be good experts in our field. Like, we have to see this work. We have to know some of the things that are coming to be able to have those conversations.
And you have to open yourself up to things that you don't know and that you aren't necessarily comfortable with, to be able to grow yourself as someone with an overall view of the field itself.
Absolutely. Josh, we've talked about a lot of things under the radar. A couple of things I want to discuss that's sort of adjacent to that. But before we move away from that, is there anything under the radar festival related that you want to talk about or that you want to mention? So
one thing that I've always struggled with is that Under the Radar is happening at the same time as APAP, at the same time as
ISPA. Global Fest.
Yeah, Global Fest is also happening at the same time. And I've always thought, I wish I could get to more of these Under the Radar shows. I wouldn't be there in the first place for 90% of the time that I've gone to Under the Radar shows if it wasn't for APAP.
Yes.
And so it actually affords me the ability as a presenter from the Midwest to dive into that experimental theater world that is in New York City and that is present during that time that I wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah. I budgets are tight. Don't get me wrong. I fully understand that. But I think if folks have the means and are able to, I would encourage folks to add a day, 2 days onto their APAP itinerary if they're going to APAP or ISPA or whatever that is, to just isolate some time to do a couple of those shows, just to see some stuff to just sort of like add to their experience in their time in New York City.
Yeah, and those shows are not expensive shows either.
No,
they're approachable and affordable and easy to get your tickets for. You can find links to tickets for all of the shows on Under the Radar Festival's website. Once I've struggled through all that, I'm now very grateful that it's happening all at the same time in New York.
So Josh and I talked about this month and a half prior to going to New York, of extending our time and wanting to take in more of Under the Radar so that we could have this conversation on the podcast. We also did a few interviews there as well that we'll share coming up. But with that, I think I spent 10 days in New York. You added another weekend.
I was there 13 days total.
13 days total. And so with that, you and I saw, I think, 12 shows together. And that doesn't include some of the Broadway shows that Jordan and I saw together. That doesn't include the ones that you and your family saw, and then the things you also saw on your own. So, I mean, we took in a lot of shows and a wide variety of shows, things that were on Under the Radar, things that were on Broadway, some showcases, and then a surprise
because piece. we still did showcases at APAP and amongst all of this.
Yes. Honestly, it's the most theater I think I've seen in New York in one run.
And there were multiple days where we did 3 or more shows,
full length shows,
at least 3 full length shows, and then showcases after that.
Yeah. So it was an impressive amount of theater, I will say. But with that, we added one show on, I think it was my last day in town. We were at an event together, and somebody was like, "Hey, do you want to go see this piece?" They were excited about it. There is a comedy duo. She has created a piece because she has tragically lost her partner and her husband. And coming out of that, she created this piece called Grief that we were invited to see a work in progress for. And we took the last all the way on the subway, went into Flushing, could not have been farther away from everything else.
I ignorantly did not necessarily really want to go because
it's a clown show on grief.
It's a one woman clown show on grief, which does not sound incredibly compelling as something that I want to go and sit down and watch.
Yes, but after seeing it, thoughts, Josh?
Including all of the Broadway shows that I saw, and Kevin and I have talked about this, and I think he agrees with me. It was the sole best piece of theater that I saw the entire time I was in New York City.
Absolutely. I have not stopped talking about this piece. I have not stopped thinking about this piece.
I talked to my board of directors about it. And explained it to them and talked them through it.
Yeah.
And because they asked what I did in New York City, and I was like, I have to tell you about this.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it got to our board meeting.
Yeah.
Because it impacted me so much.
I mean, Josh, you saw it. I saw it. I mean, I wept. I mean, just
multiple
wept. Multiple times and laughed. It was, I think, the best description of grief and loss without ever saying a word.
Oh yeah, and that it was a silent one woman clown piece on grief.
Yeah.
Truly amazing theater.
Yeah. I could talk about it for hours. I could walk people through, these incredible moments that you and I experienced. But what I will say is if you have an opportunity to see it, go see it. It's Grief, spelled Greef. We can drop a link to something about it in the show notes. But I would honestly, if you've got a chance, I'm looking for another opportunity to see it.
I would watch it again in a heartbeat.
Again, I would weep.
It was It was the best 3 hours invested.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Because we took a subway all the way out to Flushing.
Yeah.
Watched it, took a subway all the way back and went all the way down to Lower Manhattan for the next show that we were seeing that night. And I would not give up that 3 hours for anything.
Yeah.
It changed how I think about clown as a mode of theater.
Yes.
As a practice, as an expression. I did not know that it could do that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I wanted to talk about that because I think it was, like you said, it was easily the best piece of theater that we saw in New York. It's probably the best piece of theater I've seen in quite some time. And honestly, right now, I would put it up against anything. Mm-hmm. But it's all sort of the point of when we went to New York this year, the point and the goal was to see as much as we could, to see a wide variety of work.
And as off the wall and weird as it might seem, we were more excited to engage with it, to put ourselves out of our comfort zone.
Absolutely.
I can't wait to do the Under the Radar Symposium again if I'm able.
Yes.
And it has changed the way I view my experience for APAP by being exposed to this much new emerging experimental edgy theater, that it can be about growth for me personally as a professional in so many more ways than just professional development at a conference. And so I look forward to engaging further with that.
Similar. For me, it changes the way that I will look at APAP and my time in New York moving forward, adding some extra time and making sure I get to see some shows. The other thing that we didn't talk about that I also really enjoyed was we get to see a lot of different spaces. We got to see a lot of different styles of spaces, both small, both and big, some with lots of tech, some with no tech, but I finally had an opportunity to go to Joe's Pub. I mean, of all the places, it's been one of those places I've wanted to go, but it's never lined up in a schedule or never a performance that I could get to, those sort of things. But I finally got to see a show there, which was really great. It fed these different parts of our industry that I think I needed this year. Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, Josh and I did a few interviews while we were there. So we'll have some upcoming interviews about Under the Radar. And I think, moving forward, we will keep talking about this. So, Josh, I owe you a thank you because you brought the symposium idea to me. We obviously had experienced Under the Radar shows in the past, but never quite like this. And so it was nice having a theater buddy for 12 shows. So I appreciate it.
And it was also really nice seeing the overarching Under the Radar Festival and what from the symposium and what they do there through seeing shows all over the city. We went all the way out to Brooklyn College, which is all the way out at the Brighton Beach stop on the subway, which is an hour out, all the way to, not that it was part of Under the Radar Festival, but all the way out to Flushing. We were all over the place in all kinds of different spaces,
and
all
the
over New
financial
York.
district. I mean, we were all sorts of,
and it was wonderful.
Yeah, that's right. We talked about while we were there, like there were so many parts of the city that we had never really experienced because we're sort of locked into Midtown for the most part.
Yeah. And we were, as Kevin was saying, we did a number of interviews while we were there, and we will be releasing those throughout this year because we feel that Under the Radar Festival is something that is incredibly important and that there could be more engagement from the presenter field into seeing experimental work while you're in New York City.
And with that, folks, we'll see you next time on There's No Business Like.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to There's No Business Like. Our producers and hosts are Brian Zelmer, Josh Benson, Kevin Maynard, Katie Miller, and me, Danielle Van Hook. Views expressed in this podcast are ours alone and are not reflective of the organizations we are a part of. Keep up with us at nobusinesslike.com. There you'll find links to all of our episodes and socials. If you like this podcast, give us a like, a follow, a review, or our favorite, a 5-star rating. Oh wait, what was that site? I got it, don't worry. It is nobusinesslike.com. Do I sound out bus-I-ness every time I type it? Yep, sure do. Stay in touch, my friends.
Do you want to retake that?
Please, we will cut that.
It's a great joke, though.
Yeah.
It's too bad no one will hear it.